to our mouth. And with bleeding gums still not going away, there's more and more research going down the rabbit hole of the biome of the mouth. And maybe the disease of the mouth is nothing to do with whether you're having fluoride or whether you're having sugar or whether you're having this or that or everything else. Maybe just the whole balance of the ecosystem of the mouth is so out that it's lost its protective sense, or it's overreacting. So you've got a lot of protectors, a lot of histamine and a lot of protectors, but these protectors are bullies, a bit like when we had lockdown 4 years ago. These bullies were kind of irritating us. So on one level, they're protective, trying to save our life. And on another level, they're kind of holding us back and potentially destroying our life. You know, you get locked in for too long and you're living under a mask all your life. It's not good for our health long term, maybe in the short term, but not in the long term. And that's kind of what's been proven now with the the inflammatory reactions. The histamine release is great at first, but if it hangs around, it starts to become destructive. And it's not just in the mouth, but we're just going to stick to gum disease today, where, you know, it just keeps going and then it starts nibbling away at our jawbone, and then our teeth get longer as everything shrinks down with aggressive gum diseases. And then you get parasites getting in, and then it just spawns this evil journey where generally pretty healthy people can get really sick very, very quickly. And we saw it in World War One in particular. It was called trench mouth. It's when you can imagine these young recruits being kind of like these 18, 19-year-olds being pushed in, you know, ordered into the trenches in France. And they were so young, not really military trained, just kind of recruited in, just thrown at the front line. They were sitting in mud with a rifle in mud, and gases, all these nasty gases coming at them, with the fear of at any time now, guns and opposition are going to come to kind of take your life. And I think the only thing that kept them going was smoking. So they would stay warm or comforted by having a cigarette. They had to be careful because you couldn't have the light of the cigarette above the trench line, because that would actually signal where you are, and then a sniper would finish your life. So they all had to smoke with sort of facing down into the mud. But ultimately, fear, anxiety, smoking, cold, malnutrition just created this awful oral disease called trench mouth. And we have seen trench mouth out in the normal kind of environment, not in battle time or wartime, but in socially deprived areas where people are undernourished, malnourished, smoking heavily, maybe living in cold conditions. Certainly street people who are just not lucky enough to be under a roof, so they're living either in sleeping bags on the streets. And then when those people get examined, they basically have trench mouth. And then you have milder versions of that, even in good socioeconomic groups, where it's okay. It used to be seen as very okay to be smoking 60 cigarettes a day and drinking lots of wine and being a high type A personality in business and all these business meetings. Certainly in the 80s, you know, it was all about go, go, go. So we were seeing a lot of gum disease back in those days just by high flyers overcooking themselves. You know, just like keeping that energy going. They were maybe taking stimulants as well, the what I'd call the white powders of the world. And not a lot of people really think maybe that's what's causing it. Yeah. And it's all about, oh, you got to brush your teeth more. When I say to me, the education is all about oral hygiene. You got to brush your teeth, make sure the plaque is off your teeth. And on many levels, that's correct. But who's looking after the rest? Who's looking after the stress? Who's looking after all the habits that are destructive? And that's, to me, is where certainly a dental practice or a medical team that wants to look after the emotional aspect of healthcare. So not necessarily the psychiatry, but it could be, because why are some people on a very self-destructive path? You know, workaholism is now seen as a mental health problem. It's seen as a disorder, like any ism, like alcoholism or even smokingism, whatever the term is for over smoking. These are all kind of addictions, aren't they? And I think addictions are the scourge of modern man, and where man has got so out of balance. And who's looking after these people? They tend to end up either dead in the mortuary, If they're lucky, they get a heart attack and then they recuperate and they have a near-death experience that kind of wakes them up and they decide to change their life 100%. They go the other way. They leave that type A job and maybe just find their more heartfelt path, shall we call it? Their true, what I call a dharma, where they've had an epiphany from their ill health and their crisis. Where in religious terms, it's like you're on your knees and you pray to God and you say, "I surrender." Give it up. Give it up to God, and then you get these intuitions, these guidances to run a different way of living, where it's much more in tune with one's intuition and one's kind of spirit connection or God connection, rather than the ego and driving towards, I've got to make more money, I've got to get this promotion, I've got to get this gold medal, or whatever the driver is. That is fine if it's not killing you, but if it's killing you, you've got to start to question all this stuff.